23 Frank. Go to 10-5 for this 10-10, going to troop 1. 10-4. 2194 we go. 2194. Container Hill, didn't give me the old point, like 10-4. 10-3. 8876. 8876. 7-4.
Never in my wildest imagination did I think that I would wind up in prison. I couldn't imagine doing anything that would result in me coming here. I mean, I was brought up by a loving, caring family and taught to do the right thing. And for the most part, I did. I mean, I was a good kid. I took my chances, obviously. But never, I mean, even after this happened, it was unbelievable. I mean, it's like a bad dream. It's almost indescribable. You can't even imagine it until you become wrapped up in it. But, I mean, despite, my girlfriend was seriously injured in the accident. And I haven't talked to her since 2 weeks after the accident. She hates me for what happened. She hates me for the fact that I was driving and one of her best friends died.
And they said, do you know what has happened to you? And I said, no. And they said, you were in a terrible car accident. Your friend Debbie is dead. That's the first thing they said. And my first thought was, it's not true. They're lying. I'm sorry.
I guess in some twisted way I thought that I was blessed, that it could never happen to me. It never happened to any of my friends. I never even heard of one of my friends getting a DUI. I always thought I was in control.
We decided to go to Philadelphia to a bar that we'd been to many times before. We've gone up there on Sunday nights, and they have a all-you-can-drink special, and that was the attraction. So there was a group of about 30 people going, all in separate cars.
We rolled the dice. Every single night we went out, we rolled the dice. And you could interchange A with B with C. It didn't matter. If I wasn't driving, then I was riding. And if I wasn't riding, I was looking for a ride. You know, it never mattered. None of us thought it could happen to us. Nobody. And this had been the attitude all the way through school. I had been pulled over 2 or 3 times. Coming home from bars, where the officers actually got me out of the car and tested me. The hand to the nose, the walking the straight line, the ABCs, and I had passed every time.
We were dancing and drinking and just having a blast, and that's pretty much all I remember. I don't really remember leaving the car.
None of us had our seatbelts on this night. We were coming home and had been driving about 20 minutes. I definitely did not have the proper frame of mind to operate a motor vehicle that night. One beer would be too many. I know this now, but 4 to 5 I shouldn't even have thought about it. I remember hearing Drew shout my name, and when he did, my car was veering off the left-hand side of the road.
I got the call at my house that there was a fatal motor vehicle accident on Interstate 95 at the Marsh Road interchange. I responded to the accident scene, and again, the accident scene was secured and sealed by fire police and other road troopers. The first thing that I saw when I got to the scene were marks that were going through the median strip and back out onto the roadway. I talked to a couple of witnesses, and they said that they had seen this car that was involved in the accident pass them as they were southbound on 95 at a very high rate of speed. It appeared to be weaving in and out of other stopped cars other cars that were traveling southbound, and then more or less go off the road, and then all they saw was a puff of smoke. And as the witnesses approached the scene, they saw this car up on its roof, and Debbie DeSanto laying in the roadway. As I walked further down the scene, obviously I came across Debbie's body, which was laying in the right lane at the edge of the road, a pool of blood next to her, and no signs of life. She's obviously dead. I walked further south towards the vehicles that were involved, and I came across David Bond's vehicle that was upside down, smoking, the lights still on. I could smell the odor of alcohol even at the time that I approached the accident scene. The doors were ripped from the car. There was no glass left in the car. It was basically all tangled in, as I said, it was on its roof. The smell of burning fluids, that were leaking out of the car and dripping on hot pipes, that kind of thing. My job then becomes one of figuring out what happened, why it happened, and specifically how fast he was going. These types of things need to be gathered for prosecution later down the line.
I don't think people realize just exactly how much things affect other people. Not only did this person kill my sister, but people have to also realize when they think about doing this, or don't think, is basically what happens, exactly what people go through. I wonder if anybody realizes how it feels for me. I was 18 years old and having to live through this. I was handed jewelry that my sister had on that night, a watch that stopped. I mean, you look at these things and you just, I don't think he understood exactly what he did. To be 18 years old and be at your sister's funeral and to see your parents fall apart at the seams and to have to know that you're going to live the rest of your life without she was my very best friend in the whole world.
I could go on for hours about what I'd like to say to Debbie. But the bottom line, the most sincere and honest thing that I can say is I would trade places with her in a second. Not just because I can't, not just because I know that can never happen. In a second, I would trade places with her.
It almost pales by comparison when you look at what happened to the DeSantis family and what happens to our family by comparison, because David will be with us, is with us. But the separation and the way the separation is impossible to deal with. And there's no sensibility to it. There's no understanding of what's going to happen to him at this time. We're just lost.
The tragic or sad part of this case is that David Bond was probably and is probably an upper middle class boy with a good education, a college degree, who did go out with his friends with the idea that they were going to just party and come home that night. I think that it's difficult for people with that kind of background when this type of thing happens to fathom that, at least in this area of the law, and indeed in many others, but perhaps most importantly in this area of the law is colorblind, it's gender blind, and it's social status blind. I think it's pretty clear in Delaware, at least, that no matter who you are or where you come from, if you go to trial and you get convicted, you're going to go to jail for a considerable period of time, and the jail sentences are getting longer and longer and longer as the awareness of this increases and increases.
Well, I don't keep statistics on how successful we are in our prosecutions, but I would say that for the most part, if we seek an indictment in a case, there is about a 95% chance that you are going to ultimately be convicted of that charge.
As far as the lawyer is concerned, I would like to think that I'm one of the better lawyers in Delaware, but no matter how good you are, and no matter how good of a lawyer that you get, if the facts aren't in your favor, and if there's nothing to work with, and if the jury rejects what your arguments are, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you pay that lawyer. It doesn't matter whether you bring in somebody from California who makes millions of dollars. The bottom line is the same in Delaware. If you get convicted of this type of a crime, you're going to go to jail no matter who you are.
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I have no idea. I have criminally negligent homicide on my criminal record for the rest of my life. You think employees want to hear, or employers want to hear about someone with a criminal record? For criminally negligent homicide means you killed somebody. How do I explain that? Nobody wants to hear about that. I have to deal with the situation for 4 years of being incarcerated, being locked in a place that I don't want to be, with people that I don't want to be around, that I don't understand, that I don't know, away from everything that I do know. And on top of that, I've got to deal with, for the rest of my life, the fact that a friend of mine, a person with a real bright future, and 1 million people in the world that cared about her, is gone. It happens.
I have pictures of her all over my room. I have a sweater. I have a sweater that's mine, but she used to wear it all the time. She wore it more than I did, and to me, that's her sweater. I can't wear it anymore. I feel like it's hers. She used to like some really weird music. She liked Patsy Cline, and she liked Loretta Lynn, and Coal Miner's Daughter was her favorite movie. And whenever I hear about that stuff, it always makes me think of her. It's always in the back of my mind. It never goes away. She's always there. And, for a while, right after the accident, sometimes it sounds crazy, but I used to talk to her. I'd be driving in my car, and I'd be, I'd tell her gossip that it happened at school. I was like, oh, you'll never believe this. And I used to try to talk to her just because it made me feel better, because I thought maybe she can hear me, maybe she can't.
There was nothing said like you want to race or anything like that, which was actually said on trial, but he had given me middle finger or whatever you want to call it, and we more or less argued back and forth, but it was like 20 degrees out. I remember that night real well. It was really cold, and then next thing I know, he took off, and I just took off after him, and he was in the left-hand lane still, and I was in the right-hand lane. He had a 280ZX. And I had a brand new Chevy pickup, which I just got. It was only about five months old. And we proceeded down the road, on down past Steve's Tavern, past Delaware Brick, went over the railroad tracks. And he was still, I guess he was about a car's length ahead of me at the time. It happened so fast, I didn't have time to hit my brakes or not. I don't even remember if I hit my brakes or not. But all I remember is jerking the wheel over and trying to avoid her car, because it happened so fast.
I was in a coma for 8 days, and I was inpatient at AI DuPont Institute for Children for about 3 to 4 months, and upon my release from there, I had to go back every day, except the weekends, on an outpatient basis on my therapies, and learn how to walk again, learn how to write with my hand again, because I'm right-handed and I broke my right wrist. That lasted a while, lasted a few more months after that. I'd say about maybe 8 months total. I was basically confined to a hospital.
This accident, this particular accident, looking at the cars, one of the two vehicles, the Collins vehicle, has sustained moderate damage compared to the other two. The Giacono vehicle, the background behind us, these two gentlemen were drag racing. The gentleman was driving a Z28. The vehicle that Mrs. Payne was driving, she was turning left to go up onto the ramp. She was on her way to a candlelight service with her nephew, who was in the front passenger seat. And these two gentlemen are now drag racing the roadway. Understandably, we can't go back and ask her what she saw or what she perceived that evening, but understandably, by the way, the contour of the road and the curve and the speeds that were traveled, the velocity that those cars were moving, she felt that it was safe to make a left turn. These vehicles came into her instantaneously, literally destroying her car almost on a somewhat head-on collision, destroying the complete front end and compartment portion of her vehicle. The Jacono vehicle spun around, and I'm not sure, I don't believe it rolled over, but it was literally completely destroyed. And how that gentleman lived is an additional question that just goes unanswered because of the fact of how much impact took place in this particular accident at the speeds that these individuals are traveling.
Once you get behind the wheel of a car, you take on an incredible responsibility. And it only takes 1 second to get into an accident and either to kill yourself or to kill someone else. And really, literally, 1 second you can be alive and the next second you can be dead.
Any scene that we respond to, we treat it as it is. In our opinion, it's like a homicide. It's a murder investigation until all the elements are there. The road units protect the scene. They preserve the crime scene until we get there. Basically, they are as our assistants at that point. They assist us in anything that we ask and request of them. And at that point in time, then we start documenting, photographing, videotaping the scene, and then collecting the data that is at the scene, the skid marks, the gouge marks, anything that we need for reconstruction to later put on paper, graph paper if be, or to do scale diagrams and drawings for court presentation or whatever, not knowing at that point how far this case will go, prosecution or what all elements are involved, but we pick every little piece of evidence up, and what might not appear to some as importance later could very well be the puzzle piece that puts it all together.
The court is beginning to treat juveniles the same as adults when it comes to death or serious physical injury caused by gross reckless driving or driving while under the influence involving other factors such as speed, recklessness, carelessness. And the only message people truly understand is the punishment in those type of cases. That is the clearest message that the courts can send to the public, is to look at the sentences imposed upon these individuals, whether they're adults or juveniles, if they cause death or serious physical injury.
I was kind of shocked to be treated as an adult, and that was more of a shock to me than anything. You know, I figured, well, I'm 17, and I'll go to the family court and do something like that. But that was basically the biggest shock to me was that.
The punishment never brings back the victim, whether the victim is dead or seriously physically injured. Punishment never makes that victim whole. So you try to make the punishment fit the crime. But by the same token, it's the type of punishment that more people listen to. Because people who get behind the wheel while they're drinking are people, a lot of them read the newspaper, understand the particular punishment. And I think that the punishment in this area has more of a deterrence than punishment for a lot of other crimes.
It takes everything's taken away from you. No freedom. You got limited contact with your family and your girlfriend or whoever, your loved ones, and it's just like a nightmare. You know, every morning I wake up, it's like what am I doing here? Like why did I do this? You know, it's like there's no explanation for it. You know, it's just something that I know I shouldn't have done, and I regret it every day.
It was 2 weeks before the accident. She'd driven home one night, and I have no idea how Laura got home that night. She walked through the back door. She basically made it to the bedroom. When she hit the bed, she passed out. It was a miracle that she got home. The following day, I told her that she was going to put me in the awkward position of telling our daughter that her mother was dead due to drinking and driving. And her exact words were to me that it only happens to other people, and it was never going to happen to her. And she grabbed me by the cheek when she said it, and said, "I promise you that, buddy." And it was two weeks later I got the phone call. She became other people real fast. Prognosis is Laurie will stay this way the rest of her natural life, which would be her life expectancy, the doctor tells us, is 40 to 50 years. About 1 o'clock in the morning, she decided to leave the bar. Everybody knew she wasn't able to drive, because she had drank so much, but nobody stopped her. They figured she had driven that way before, she'd made it home. She could make it home again this night. And she left the establishment. She went down Fraser Road, and she failed to stop at the stop sign in Fraser Road and ran underneath the tractor trailer. She hit him at mid-trailer. Laurie is unable to speak. She's unable to eat. Basically, the way they feed her, she has a food tube. It's attached into her stomach. And 12 hours a day she's given water. The other 12 hours a day she's given a liquid diet. And that's how basically she stays alive with the food. She eats nothing by mouth. She can't control her bowels. They basically have her on diapers. And they have a physical therapist that comes in 3 times a week who actually, to keep all her limbs, flexible and keep all her tendons stretched. They come in 3 days a week to do that. They had an occupational therapist that was working with her like speech, so maybe they could get her to eat food or vocalize something, but they gave up on it because she just was not responding.
Long before a person feels the effect of alcohol, as far as changing and altering the mind, long before others consider a person under the influence of alcohol, so-called being drunk, the alcohol concentration is at such a level that already started the impairment for the purpose of driving. So when I say that a couple of drinks could put an individual in impairment situation, the person himself or herself may not consider at all the effect of alcohol, and yet that effect on the brain already is at the level that would produce impairment for the purpose of driving.
The estimated speed for the vehicle was between 90 and 95 miles an hour. The vehicle struck the curb, then spun around, began to rotate clockwise. The rear of the car came around and struck the curb north of where the front of the car struck the curb. The car went off the road, through the cyclone fence, and at the time there was a large tree in the front yard of 1068 Yorkland Road. The car struck the tree with the windshield and roof of the car. The car began to become airborne as it came off the curb and struck the tree. 4 of the 5 occupants of the car died as a result of injuries from the accident. There was 1 survivor. The survivor was located in the back seat on the driver's side behind the driver.
When I received the phone call from Christiana Emergency Room, the first thing they asked me is if I had a daughter by the name of Carla Renee DiBiazzo, and wanted to know when her birthday was. Carla was brain dead, and they were waiting for a doctor to come in to read the CAT scan. I walked in the hallway with the girl who drove me there, and that's when I heard a code blue. And I knew before I was told that my daughter would not be coming home.
It's been 5 years plus since that day or that evening. It appears as though it was just yesterday. Nothing has changed, not a thing. I know time's supposed to heal things, but this is something to me that just cannot be healed. There's not a day go by that members of my family, myself, my wife, his grandmother and the rest, there's not a day go by that we said, oh, there's no memories or anything. There's always constant things that remind us of William.
It doesn't get any easier to deal with the memory of my three friends and the thought of it was my fault that I've lost my three friends. And they're lost for good. They're not, somebody that says, I'm not going to be your friend anymore and goes away, they're lost for good. It doesn't get any easier to deal with that.
If a juvenile is convicted of manslaughter or vehicle homicide, he or she will have to live with that for the rest of their lives. And I've seen and talked to people who have been through this, and they're still going through it. Day after day after day, they see the crash. They hear the cries, the moans. They see their friends lying there. And it's something that they're going to never forget. And it's the same for the victim's family. They've lost this loved one. They'll never see him or her again. And it's just truly, truly a tragedy. It's a no-win scenario.
I partied a lot, and I never really drank and drove myself. But we were the, first people to hop in a car and to get a ride home. And the worst thing we thought could happen was, oh, that person will get the DUI, not me. I'm in the back seat or whatever. That's really the worst thing we thought could ever happen to us, was someone getting a DUI. And, it never really occurred to us that even if it was a 2-mile ride home, And, but it can. And people who are driving, the people in your car, they trust you with their life. I mean, I trusted someone with my life, and I almost lost it.
No one ever thinks that it can be them, and people are going to watch this tape, sit there and sit through this tape and watch it and think everything's cool because they get to watch this tape about this guy in jail who does something that they probably do every weekend, but this is getting them out of second period, or this is a way that they don't have to take their exam, or they get to watch a movie about a kid that messed up, and that blows a period for them. And they'll go out on Friday and they'll still party. I'm in jail and I'm talking to this video camera, I'm talking to you, and there's nothing that I can do to pound this into people's heads, to make them see that it's reality. But if you stop to think for 1 second while you're at a party, or you're hanging out with your friends, as you're drinking the beer, and you're jingling your car keys in your pocket, and rolling to the next party, or going home, or dropping off your girlfriend, or picking your girlfriend up, you get in that car, and you've had a drink, one drink, and someone hits you, and there's a fatality, or there's an injury, you're at fault, and you're exactly where I am, and it can happen. It has happened. I'm proof.